Thank you for joining with me. We are reading with the Course Companion Group. We are on day 145, section 3, The Dark Companions, out of A Course in Miracles. And it's the complete and annotated edition, edited by Robert Perry and Emily Bennington on her website. It's the Course Companions Group, or you can check it out on Facebook. Just search for Course Companions. If you will please join me in a prayer. Dear Father, please enable me to set aside everything I think I know about A Course in Miracles, about this reading, about myself, about my brothers, and about you, God, and this world. Please enable me to have an open mind and a new experience. Thank you so much, God. And here we go. Section 3, The Dark Companions. And yet the invitation must come from you, for you have surely learned that whom you invite as your guest will abide with you. 9. John 14:16. And I will pray the Father, and he shall give you another Comforter, that he may abide with you forever. The Holy Spirit cannot speak to an unwelcoming host because he will not be heard. The eternal guest remains, but his voice grows faint in alien company. He needs your protection, but only because your care is a sign that you want him. Think like him ever so slightly, and the little spark becomes a blazing light that fills your mind, so that he becomes your only guest. Whenever you ask the ego to enter, you lessen his welcome. He will remain, but you have allied yourself against him. Whatever journey you choose to take, he will go with you, waiting. You can safely trust his patience, for he cannot leave a part of God. But you will far more than patience. 10. Footnote 10. What you will that is far more than patience is your function in heaven as co-creator with God. So, but you will far more than patience. You will never rest until you know your function and fulfill it. For only in this can your will and your Father's be wholly joined. To have him is to be like him, and he has given himself to you. You who have God must be as God, for his function became yours with his gift. Invite this knowledge back into your mind, and let nothing that would obscure it enter. The guest whom God sent you will teach you how to do this, if you but recognize that little spark and are willing to let it grow. Your willingness need not be perfect, because he is. If you will merely offer him a little place, he will lighten it so much that you will gladly extend it. And by this extending, you will begin to remember creation. Would you be hostage to the ego or host to God? You will accept only whom you invite. You are free to determine who shall be your guest and how long he shall remain with you, but this is not real freedom, for it depends on how you see it. For the Holy Spirit is there, although he cannot help you without your invitation, and the ego is nothing whether you invite it or not. Real freedom depends on welcoming reality, and of your guests only he is real. Know then who abides with you merely by recognizing what is already there, and do not be satisfied with imaginary comforters, for the Comforter of God is in you. When you are weary, remember you have hurt yourself. Your Comforter will rest you, but you cannot. You do not know how, for if you did, you could never have grown weary. Unless you have hurt yourself, you could never suffer in any way, for that is not God's will for his Son. Pain is not of him, for he knows no attack, and his peace surrounds you silently. God is very quiet, for there is no conflict in him. Conflict is the root of all evil. Footnote 11, 1 Timothy 6:10. For the love of money is the root of all evil. All right, let me repeat this. Conflict is the root of all evil, for being blind, it does not see whom it attacks, but it always attacks the Son of God, and the Son of God is you. God's Son is indeed in need of comfort, for he knows not what he does. 12, footnote 12, Luke 23:34. Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. So God's Son is indeed in need of comfort, for he knows not what he does. Believing his will is not his own. The kingdom is his, and yet he wanders homelessly. At home in God he is lonely, and amid all his brothers he is friendless. Would God let this be real if he did not will to be alone himself? And if your will is his, it cannot be true of you, because it is not true of him. Oh, my children, if you knew what God wills for you, your joy would be complete. Footnote 13. John 15:11. I have told you this so that my joy may be in you and that your joy may be complete. 2 John 1:12. Though I have much to write to you, I would rather not use paper and ink, but I hope to come to see you and talk with you face to face, so that our joy may be complete. Where was I? I'm sorry. Okay. And what he wills has happened, for it was always true. When the light comes and you have said, God's will is mine, you will see such beauty that you will not know it is not of you. Out of your joy you will create beauty in his name, for your joy could no more be contained than his. The bleak little world will vanish into nothingness, and your heart will be so filled with joy that it will leap into heaven and into the presence of God. I cannot tell you what this will be like, for your heart is not ready, but I can tell you and remind you often that what God wills for himself, he wills for you, and what he wills for you is yours. The way is not hard, but it is very different. Yours is the way of pain, of which God knows nothing. That way is hard indeed, and very lonely. Fear and grief are your guests, and they go with you and abide with you on the way. But the dark journey is not the way of God's Son. Walk in light and do not see the dark companions. 14. The dark companions are the fear and grief that you have invited to be your guests along the way. Okay. So walk in the light and do not see the dark companions, for they are not fit companions for the Son of God, who was created of light and in light. The great light always surrounds you and shines out from you. How can you see the dark companions in a light such as this? If you see them, it is only because you are denying the light. But deny them instead, for the light is here and the way is clear. God hides nothing from his Son, even though he would hide himself. Yet the Son of God cannot hide his glory, for God willed them to be glorious and gave him the light that shines in him. You will never lose your way, for God leads you. When you wander, you but undertake a journey which is not real. The dark companions, the dark way, are all illusions. Turn toward the light, for the little spark in you is part of a light so great that it can sweep you out of all darkness forever. For your Father is your Creator, and you are like Him. The children of light cannot abide in darkness, for darkness is not in them. Do not be deceived by the dark comforters, and never let them enter the mind of God's Son, for they have no place in His temple. When you are tempted to deny Him, remember that there are no other gods that can be placed before Him. 15. Exodus 23. Thou shalt have no other gods before me. Here the other gods are the dark comforters, fear and grief. All right, and accept His will for you in peace, for you cannot accept it otherwise. Only God's comforters can comfort you. In the quiet of His temple, He waits to give you the peace that is yours. Give His peace that you may enter the temple and find it waiting for you. But be holy in the presence of God, or you will not know you are there. For what is unlike God cannot enter His mind, because it was not in His thought, and therefore does not belong to Him. And your mind must be as pure as His if you would learn what belongs to you. Guard carefully His temple, for He Himself dwells there and abides in peace. You cannot enter God's presence with the dark companions beside you, but also you cannot enter alone. All your brothers must enter with you, for until you have accepted them, you cannot enter. For you cannot understand wholeness unless you are whole, and no part of the Son can be excluded if He would know the wholeness of His Father. In your mind you can accept the whole sonship and bless it with the light your Father gave it. Then you will be worthy to dwell in the temple with Him, because it is your will not to be alone. God blessed His Son forever. If you will bless Him in time, you will be in eternity. Time cannot separate you from God if you use it on behalf of the eternal. And now I will move to Robert Perry's commentary. The Dark Companions. We've started this section several paragraphs earlier than in the FIP edition, based on a break in the notes that was not transferred into the Your text. I like the section starting where it does now, just because you can see that the whole section is about a single question. Who will you choose as your guest on the journey, the dark comforters or God's comforter? This is really the same question as the powerful one that Jesus asks in the middle of this section. Would you be hostage to the ego or host to God? We think that inviting the ego to be our guest means choosing a life that's for us, where we get to pursue what makes us happy. But that's not how it turns out. The journey is hard and lonely. Yes, we have companions along the way. We have comforters, but they are fear and grief. These are the dark companions who are supposed to alleviate our loneliness. They are the only ones we can turn to for comfort. You can see why Jesus calls this the dark journey. Is this a journey that we have been on? Even while this is our journey, however, there is good news. Our true comforter, the Holy Spirit, is still with us. We don't hear Him, but He always goes with us, patiently waiting. for he cannot leave a part of God. And our chosen guest, the ego, is nothing whether you invite it or not. So the journey we are on is actually an illusion. We can't really lose our way. God makes sure of that. When we wander off the path, we enter an unreal land and traverse it on an unreal journey. When we return to the path, which we inevitably do, it's as if it never happened. Sooner or later, we'll decide we have had enough of the dark journey. It's just too hard. In our weariness, we will at last turn to God's comforter. Unlike the dark comforters, he can really comfort us. He can give us true rest. Fear and grief can't give us rest, and we can't give rest to ourselves. How could we when we are the ones who have made ourselves weary? We need then to invite God's comforter to be our guest on the journey. To invite him is to turn toward the light. He will take us on a journey of light, in which the great light surrounds us and shines out from us. Imagine walking in a light so great that the dark companions, fear and grief, are nowhere to be seen. Who wouldn't want that kind of journey? What is our role in this? How do we consent to this journey? First, we offer the Holy Spirit just a little place in our mind, which seems to have something to do with pure thought, clear sight, and understanding. First we offer the Holy Spirit just a little place in our mind. If we do, he will fill it with light. The little spark in our mind, which seems to have something to do with pure thought, clear sight, and understanding, will grow and sweep us out of darkness. Think like him ever so slightly, and the little spark becomes a blazing light that fills your mind, so that he becomes your only guest. Second, we need to refuse to let the dark companions, fear and grief, enter our mind. Walk in light and do not see the dark companions. Never let them enter the mind of God's Son. We need to see our mind as inside God's temple and then guard carefully his temple. This doesn't mean we force out of our mind legitimate fear and grief. It means we realize there is no legitimate fear and grief, and thereby shine away these shadowy companions. Third, we need to invite all our brothers into God's temple with us. We need to accept the whole sonship and bless it with the light our Father gave it. Once we've banished our dark companions, we need to replace them with real companions, which are all our brothers. Let me go ahead and flip this over. Thank you for your patience. Once we are so filled with light and entirely free of any trace of darkness, our mind incredibly will be as pure as God's. And then we can enter his presence and finally discover what he wills for us, what has been waiting for us throughout all of our weary journeying. Jesus can't tell us what this will be like, but even his hints are deeply thrilling. Oh, my children, if you knew what God wills for you. Given that the end point of the journey is unbounded, eternal joy, we should ask ourselves the question the workbook asks us about this same journey. Could any way be holier or more deserving of your effort, of your love, and of your full intent? And that is the conclusion of this section 3 for day 146. Day 145. The Dark Companions. Chapter 11, God or the Ego. Thank you for joining with me. I love you.